making history for Philippines tennis. Are you aware of what that means back home?
Somewhat. I'm aware of what happens over
Thank
here.
you so much for the support out there. I'm super happy to be in the next round here in Dubai. I hope to see you tomorrow, and I'm happy you guys enjoyed.
It means a lot for me because it makes me feel like I'm home when I'm traveling, so many weeks of the year. And I think that feeling is reciprocated for a lot of the Filipinos.
Breaking the internet, the ultimate revenge. Alex Eala crowned with unprecedented title and massive gift after Dubai Umpire scandal. Welcome back to Court Vision Plus, your absolute #1 source for the spiciest, most hard-hitting, and completely unvarnished truth in the tennis world. If you thought the drama from the Middle East was going to quietly fade away into the background noise of the news cycle, you clearly do not know the power of the Philippines, and you certainly do not know the fierce, unyielding loyalty surrounding our very own tennis prodigy, Alex Eala. Grab your snacks, silence your notifications, hit that subscribe button right now, and brace yourselves, because what has just unfolded in Manila is sending shockwaves from the local courts of Southeast Asia all the way to the hallowed, pristine lawns of Wimbledon. The tennis world is literally shaking. The Women's Tennis Association is probably scrambling in their boardrooms as we speak, and the global Filipino diaspora, one of the most powerful and connected communities on the entire planet, is absolutely erupting with pride, emotion, and righteous fury. This is not just a sports story. This is a national reckoning. Just hours ago, the president of the Philippine Tennis Federation, Eric Olivares, held a completely unannounced, special emergency press conference at the PhilTA headquarters in Manila. The atmosphere inside that room was electric, absolutely crackling with a mix of lingering outrage from the past week's events and an overwhelming, chest-swelling sense of national pride. Reporters were packed shoulder to shoulder. Camera flashes were continuous and blinding. The air was thick with anticipation, and nobody, not a single soul in that packed room, knew exactly what bombshell was about to be dropped. When Olivares stepped up to that microphone, looking more serious, more determined, and more prepared than we have ever seen him in his entire tenure leading Philippine tennis, you could genuinely hear a pin drop. The kind of silence that only settles over a room when history is about to be made. Speaking with deep, barely contained emotion, a voice that wavered only slightly before steadying into something granite hard and resolute, and with an undeniable, blazing fire in his eyes, Olivares delivered a statement that is destined to go down not just in Philippine sports history, but in the broader annals of how nations respond when their athletes are wronged on the world stage. He looked dead into the camera and declared, with absolute conviction, that Alex Eala is not just the pride of Philippine tennis, she is a global symbol of resilience, unbreakable spirit, extraordinary patience, and once-in-a-generation talent. And then, he brought the hammer down. Loudly. Conclusively. And without a single apology. Addressing the enormous, trumpeting elephant in the room, the absolute circus that had unfolded just days before at the prestigious Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships, Olivares made it crystal clear that the Philippines stands firmly, completely, and unwaveringly behind their golden girl. He took his time methodically reminding the world of Alex's relentless journey, her blood, her sweat, her tears shed on foreign soil, away from her family and her homeland, from the earliest years of her adolescence. He spoke of the sheer, almost incomprehensible grit it takes to climb the WTA rankings when you are a young woman carrying the weight of over 100 million Filipino hopes and dreams on your back every single time you step onto a court. He painted the picture so vividly that grown journalists in that room were visibly blinking back tears. And then came the jaw-dropper. The announcement that nobody saw coming. Olivares revealed that in the direct aftermath of the Dubai debacle, the federation, backed by a newly formed consortium of some of the country's most prominent billionaire private sponsors, individuals who were watching the Dubai match from their living rooms and offices and who were utterly, incandescently disgusted by the injustice they witnessed, had convened an emergency meeting. Out of that meeting came a decision of unprecedented scale and ambition. They would present Alex with a massive, mind-boggling gift. And alongside that gift, a brand new title, created specifically for the 2026 season and beyond, one that had never existed before in Philippine sports history. The room went into an absolute, wall-shaking frenzy. Cameras snapped. Reporters shouted questions. Olivares raised his hand, commanding silence, because he wasn't even close to finished. But before we go any further into those staggering details, we have to fully revisit what happened in Dubai, because this story only makes complete sense when you understand the full depth of the injustice that ignited it. If you have been living under a rock this past week, let me paint the picture for you in vivid, unflinching detail. Alex Eala arrived at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships in the form of her young life. She had been training with a furious intensity that her coaching team described as almost alarming in its single-mindedness. Her serve was a weapon. Her forehand, that trademark, explosive, paint-the-lines forehand that has become her calling card on the WTA Tour, was operating at an elite level. Her movement was cat-like, fluid, and devastating in its efficiency. She was ready. And she showed it from the very first game of the match. She was going toe-to-toe with one of the top 10 ranked players in the world, an opponent with Grand Slam experience, a massive serve, and an intimidating reputation for destroying younger players' confidence in the early rounds. But not on this night. Alex was playing with a freedom, a boldness, and a tactical intelligence that had the analysts in the commentary box struggling to keep up. The crowd was on its feet, chanting her name, and an upset of genuinely historic proportions was not just brewing, it was almost complete. An Asian qualifier from the Philippines was about to announce herself to the tennis world in the most spectacular possible fashion. And then, at the most critical, most pivotal juncture of the deciding set, on a breakpoint that would have given Alex a lead she almost certainly would not have relinquished, disaster struck in the form of one of the most blindingly, egregiously, inexcusably horrendous umpiring decisions that the modern era of professional tennis has witnessed. A ball that was clearly, undeniably, and indisputably painted on the baseline, a winner of the absolute highest order, the kind of shot that makes highlight reels for decades, was called out. The stadium erupted not in applause, but in a thunderous, sustained chorus of boos that rattled the rafters. The replays, shown repeatedly from multiple camera angles, confirmed what every single person in that stadium already knew with their own eyes: the ball was in. It was not a close call. It was not debatable. The mark was on the line. But here's where the controversy went from infuriating to genuinely suspicious. Because of a highly questionable and suspiciously timed malfunction with the electronic line calling system that had been operating flawlessly for the entire match up until that precise, match-defining moment, the umpire's human error was made to stand. The technology that should have been the impartial arbiter of justice simply was not available at the exact moment it was needed most. Coincidence? The tennis community is deeply, bitterly divided on that question, and those divisions have been playing out loudly across every major sports forum and social media platform for the past several days. What Alex did next, though, and this is the part that cemented her status as something more than just a tennis player in the eyes of the watching world, was remarkable. She did not explode. She did not scream or melt down or smash her racket into the court surface like some far more experienced veterans of the tour do on a regular basis for far, far less provocation. She did not dissolve into tears or let her body language collapse. She walked, calmly and deliberately, to the baseline and then turned to look up at the umpire's chair. She politely, clearly, and with remarkable composure for a young woman who had just been robbed of a potential match-winning moment, questioned the call. She asked for a review. She asked for clarification. And when she was met with a cold, dismissive refusal, she simply took a breath, nodded once with quiet dignity, turned around, and kept fighting. She ended up losing that match. But the way she lost it, the grace, the maturity, the sheer unbreakable spirit she displayed in those final games, won her something far more valuable than a tournament trophy. She won the hearts of millions upon millions of people who were watching not just from the Philippines, but from every corner of the globe where tennis is played and appreciated. Social media platforms were overwhelmed with messages of support. Video clips of her dignified protest went viral within hours, accumulating tens of millions of views. Tennis legends from other generations were commenting publicly on the extraordinary poise she had shown. She had lost a match. She had won a movement. But behind closed doors, the outrage was volcanic. Players were talking. Coaches were furious. journalists were writing angry columns. And the Women's Tennis Association, the very organization whose fundamental mandate is to protect and advocate for the players competing under its banner, remained deafeningly, frustratingly, incomprehensibly silent on the issue. No official statement. No announcement of an investigation into the technology failure. No apology or acknowledgement directed at Alex or her team. No ruling. Just complete and utter radio silence. The silence of an institution that has decided, for whatever calculus of politics and convenience, that this particular injustice is not worth addressing publicly. And that silence, perhaps more than the bad call itself, is what transformed a sports controversy into a genuine international incident. Because when institutions meant to protect people fail to do so, other institutions, and entire nations, must decide how they will respond. The Philippines decided. And the Philippines does not do crickets. The Philippines roars. The roar came today from Eric Olivares, and it was magnificent in its completeness. The international public and the entire global sports community are buzzing with commentary about this press conference, and it is being universally recognized for exactly what it is, a massive, unapologetic, carefully orchestrated response to the WTA's silence. It is a calculated masterstroke of sports diplomacy that sends a message not just to the governing bodies of tennis, but to the wider world of professional athletics. When you fail to stand up for our athletes, we will. And we will do it bigger and louder and more impressively than anything you could have anticipated. Olivares did not mince a single word. He stated plainly that when the international community fails to properly protect and respect Filipino athletes, the nation will step up and elevate them higher than any umpire's chair could ever reach. It was a declaration of national sovereignty over the narrative of their most celebrated sporting champion. And the crowd in that press room, hardened, seen-it-all journalists and sports administrators, gave him a standing ovation before he had even gotten to the big reveal. So what exactly was the massive reveal? Olivares, with a quiet, triumphant, almost serene smile spreading across his face, announced not one, but two history-making developments that he said will define not just Alexandra Eala's career, but the entire future trajectory of Philippine tennis. First, the creation of what will be known as the Alexandra Eala High Performance Tennis Estate. This is a multi-million-dollar, state-of-the-art training and development facility to be constructed in the Philippines, fully funded through a combination of the committed private sponsors and the federation itself. This is not a tennis center in the casual sense of the phrase. This is a world-class installation designed to rival the finest athlete development facilities on the planet. It will feature championship-quality courts replicating the exact surfaces of all 4 Grand Slam tournaments, hard court, clay, grass, and the specific hard court variants used at the Australian and US Opens. It will house biomechanics laboratories equipped with the same motion capture and performance analysis technology used by the highest-tier professional teams in the world. It will contain dedicated sports psychology centers, nutrition and recovery facilities, and on-site housing for visiting coaches and international training partners. It will be, in every meaningful sense, a world-class fortress built specifically to help Alex conquer the world, and it will bear her name permanently. But crucially, and this is the detail that made every single person in that press room understand the full scope of what was being announced, this facility is not being built only for Alex Eala. It is being built for every Filipino child who will come after her. It is being built so that the next Alex Eala, and the one after that, will have access on home soil to the same elite-level preparation infrastructure that tennis superpowers like Spain, the United States, and France have had for decades. Alex did not just receive a gift today. She became the cornerstone of a legacy. Second, and this is the announcement that brought the entire room to its feet for the second time in a single press conference, alongside the physical facility, a substantial, fully protected financial trust fund has been established in Alex's name. This fund, capitalized by the consortium of private sponsors and structured by a team of financial and legal advisors, is designed to ensure that Alexandra Eala never has to worry about the enormous, relentless financial burden of competing at the highest level of professional tennis ever again. Tour travel costs, elite coaching fees, sports science and medical staff salaries, equipment, tournament entries, all of it, covered. Completely. with an open checkbook. Alex is now, in the most concrete and practical terms imaginable, financially bulletproof. And then, because apparently there was still one more bomb left to drop, Olivares reached into his jacket pocket and produced a single piece of paper. He held it up for the cameras and the room fell silent again, a third time, like the universe itself was leaning in to hear what came next. He announced the creation of a brand new official title, Supreme Ambassador of Philippine Athletics. Effective immediately, for the entire 2026 season and for every season to follow, Alex Eala has been officially appointed to this position by both the Philippine Tennis Federation and the National Sports Commission. And the Court Vision Plus family needs to understand, this is not a ceremonial title. This is not a ribbon and a plaque and a commemorative photo for the wall. This title comes with full diplomatic privileges and protections when representing the Philippines on foreign soil. It comes with a dedicated support staff provided directly by the National Sports Commission. And it carries a formal mandate for Alex to serve as the official voice and advocate of Filipino athletes on the global stage. Olivares didn't just crown her the queen of Philippine sports. He made her constitutionally bulletproof against the petty, grinding politics of the International Tennis Tour. The fallout from these announcements has been immediate and genuinely extraordinary. Within minutes of the press conference concluding, the story was trending on every major social media platform across Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and North America. The Filipino diaspora, tens of millions of people spread across every continent, connected by an unbreakable bond of identity and pride, mobilized instantly and completely. Comment sections were flooded with the Philippine flag emoji. The hashtag combining Alex's name with her new title began trending globally within the hour. Sports news organizations from ESPN to the BBC's sports desk were filing reports. It was not just a tennis story anymore. It had become the kind of human interest story that transcends sport entirely. Former tennis champions and current tour players were beginning to respond publicly. Several prominent figures on both the men's and women's tours, speaking through their social media accounts or through official statements from their management, expressed admiration for the Philippine Federation's response and empathy for what Alex had experienced in Dubai. Tennis analysts who had been quietly critical of the WTA's silence on the Dubai incident were now speaking more openly and more sharply, using the Philippine Federation's decisive action as a pointed contrast to the governing body's inaction. The pressure on the WTA to issue some form of statement was becoming impossible to ignore. Credible whispers from inside the tennis industry are also circulating that the organizers of the Dubai tournament are in a state of quiet, urgent panic. The social media power of the global Filipino community, a power that has repeatedly been underestimated by organizations and corporations only to be immediately, comprehensively humbled, is a force that no tournament director with half a brain wants aimed directly at their event. Reports suggest that private communications are being drafted, that apologies are being carefully worded, that the tournament's PR team is working around the clock to formulate a response that will not make things dramatically worse. Whether those private communications ever become public apologies remains to be seen. But the scrambling is real. But Court Vision Plus family, here is the moment that elevated this entire extraordinary story from remarkable to genuinely transcendent. Because all of the above, the facility, the trust fund, the title, the diplomatic privileges, as incredible as all of that is, none of it was the moment that broke the internet. The moment that broke the internet happened after all the formal announcements were complete. The lights in the Manila press room dimmed. The giant LED screen that had been displaying Federation branding at the back of the room flickered to life. A murmur moved through the crowd of reporters as they realized what was happening. A live video link was being established, connecting the press room in Manila in real time to Alex Eala's current training base somewhere in Europe. When Alex's face appeared on that screen, still in her workout gear, hair tied back in a practical bun, obviously having just stepped directly off the practice court because the sweat was still visible on her brow and her cheeks, the entire room erupted into a standing ovation that lasted for a full 3 minutes. 3 unbroken, roof-lifting minutes of applause from a room full of people who are professionally trained to maintain journalistic detachment. That is the kind of moment that tells you everything you need to know about what was happening in that room. And you could see, the instant Alex's face appeared and she heard that applause, that she had no idea this was going to happen. The sheer, overwhelming surprise on her face was completely unguarded and completely real. Her eyes went wide. Her hand went to her mouth. And then her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away from the camera for a moment, clearly trying to compose herself and finding that composition was going to be genuinely difficult. This was not a performance. This was a young woman who had just endured one of the hardest weeks of her career, who had been wronged publicly and then ignored by the very institution built to protect her, being met with the full, magnificent weight of an entire nation's love and support all at once. When she finally found her voice, the silence in the Manila press room was the deepest it had been all evening. And when she spoke, it was with the quiet, shaking clarity of someone who is feeling something too large and too real to fully contain. Her voice trembled as she began. She said she did not even know what to say, that she was standing there in her training kit, having just finished a practice session, and she was utterly overwhelmed by what she was seeing and hearing. She talked about Dubai. She talked about the moment on that court when the wrong call was made, when she understood that the technology wasn't going to save her, and when she had to make the decision about how she was going to respond to an injustice that the whole world was watching. She said that in that moment, in the middle of all the noise of that stadium and the pressure of that match and the burning unfairness of what had just happened, all she could think about was the children back home. The little girls in Palawan and Cebu and Davao and Manila who might be watching. She said she didn't want to show anger. She said she knew that millions of young Filipinos were watching how she handled defeat, even when the defeat was unjust, and that she wasn't going to teach them that the right response to unfairness is to fall apart. So here's what we need from you, Court Vision Plus family, right now. If this story moved you, if it gave you goosebumps, if it made you angry on Alex's behalf and then lifted you up with the beauty of what the Philippines did in response, then smash that like button right now until your screen shakes. It takes 1 second and it matters more than you think. Jump down into the comments and leave your message of support for Supreme Ambassador Alex Eala. Let's flood this comment section with Philippine flags and fire emojis and words of encouragement so powerful that she can feel them all the way over in Europe. This community has a voice. Let's use it loudly today. And if you are not yet subscribed to Court Vision Plus, what on earth are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you are always the first to know when we drop the stories that the rest of the tennis media is either too slow or too cautious to cover. We bring you the real drama, the real passion, the real stories of the court. Until next time, keep your eyes on the ball, keep your hearts with our champion, and we will see you in the next video.
Continues to be an effective platform for cooperation between the national government and the LGUs in bringing about the vision of inclusive growth.
Match like this takes a lot out of you mentally and physically, so what are you going to focus on when it comes to recovery for the next match?
Sleep. I think it's everyone's bedtime. People probably have work, so...
Everyone to come and join us. The third flavors of the NCR Food Festival, April 19th to the 20th at the Central Park Filinvest.